All right, welcome back for another deep dive.
Always fun to go deep.
Today we're diving into a pretty hot topic down here in St. Johns County, Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Taxes, development, and some very concerned voters.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, right. So we got this letter here urging folks to vote no on two tax proposals that are on the upcoming ballot.
Okay.
One is an early renewal.
Early.
Yeah, an early renewal of a half-cent sales tax for schools for another 10 years.
10 years. Wow.
Yeah. And the other is a brand new $1 million property tax.
Mm-hmm.
This one is to boost teacher salaries.
Okay.
Just for 4 years.
Right.
Now, the main argument in this letter is that all this overdevelopment that's been going on
Right.
is driving the need for these taxes.
Interesting.
And the letter writer's really saying that developers just aren't paying their fair share.
Sounds like a classic clash of interests.
Oh, for sure.
You know what's so fascinating about this is like this very local issue in St. Johns County actually reflects a much larger national conversation.
Oh, totally.
About responsible growth and how we fund infrastructure and how do you balance attracting all these new people with maintaining a good quality of life for the people who already live there.
Absolutely. You know, one thing I've always wondered about is those impact fees.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like the ones that developers have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
It seems logical that they should be contributing to the cost of all this new development.
Right.
But I can also see how it could get really complicated really quickly.
Oh, it definitely can get really complex.
Yeah.
And this letter is arguing that St. Johns County just isn't handling it very well.
Right.
They're claiming that the county's already bringing in plenty of tax revenue.
Yeah.
But all this overdevelopment is putting such a strain on resources, especially schools.
Right.
And that's leading to this push for higher taxes.
Yeah. And just to remind folks, we're talking about one of the wealthiest counties in Florida.
Right.
You wouldn't think they'd be struggling to fund their schools.
Yeah, it is a wealthy county.
It is.
And that's exactly the point the letter writer is trying to make.
Yeah. They highlight the fact that back in 2018,
Okay.
the county commissioners actually lowered school impact fees for most new homes.
Wait, they lowered impact fees?
They did.
In the middle of a development boom.
Yep.
I would think those fees would be going up.
You would think so.
No, down.
And to make it even more interesting, only one commissioner at the time voted against it,
Oh, wow.
a guy named Paul Waldron. And he actually warned that development is not paying for itself in the county.
Wow. That's a pretty bold statement.
It is.
So just so everyone's clear, these school impact fees are those one-time payments
Right.
that developers make to help offset the cost of building and maintaining schools.
Yep. For all the new students that come with all the new houses,
Exactly.
they're meant to ensure that growth, at least when it comes to schools, pays for itself.
Right.
But by lowering those fees, the letter writer is arguing that the county shifted the burden of paying for those schools onto the shoulders of existing residents
Oh.
instead of the developers, instead of the new people coming in.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And get this, they claim they lowered the fees by a lot, like almost 31% for a typical new home.
31%, that's huge.
It is. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
If those fees were lowered in 2018 to encourage development,
Right.
then why are we seeing these new tax proposals just a few years later?
That's a great question.
The letter suggesting that this sequence of events implies that these tax increases are more about helping out developers than addressing the real needs of the students and the residents.
Okay, I see where they're going with this.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're saying that developers are getting tax breaks while residents are the ones stuck with the bill
Exactly.
for all the consequences of this new development.
Precisely. And they back up this claim by pointing to the skyrocketing debt of the school district.
Oh, really?
Yeah, between 2019 and 2024, their long-term debt quadrupled.
Quadrupled.
Yeah, it went from $108 million to a staggering $443 million.
Wow. That is a massive increase.
It is. Just think about it. Quadrupling the debt in just 5 years.
That's crazy.
And this could have serious downstream effects, like cuts to essential programs or even steeper tax hikes down the road.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder if this pace of development is even sustainable.
That's a really good question, yeah.
It is a big concern.
And the letter directly links this debt increase to the 2018 impact fee reduction,
Okay.
coupled with that surge in new home construction
Yeah.
and all the new kids, all the new students that come along with all those new houses.
So more kids needing schools, but less money coming in from impact fees to build them
Right.
equals a mountain of debt.
Exactly.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. But wait, I thought there were rules about how often those impact fees have to be reviewed.
You're right, there are.
Yeah.
And the letter criticizes the county commissioners for delaying that legally required review.
Really?
Yeah, they're supposed to be reviewed every 5 years.
Right.
And that review was due last year in 2023,
Uh-huh.
but now it might not even happen until 2025.
But they're asking voters to approve these new taxes this year,
I know.
in 2024. Isn't that kind of backwards?
It seems that way, yeah.
Shouldn't they figure out if the current fees are actually working before asking taxpayers to pay even more money?
That's a really good point.
It just doesn't seem right.
And that's exactly what this letter is arguing. It just feeds into their whole point
Which is?
that this isn't about responsible financial management. It's
Yeah.
about pushing through these tax increases that benefit developers, not the people who live here.
Okay, so let me get this straight.
Yeah.
We've got lowered impact fees, potentially leading to higher taxes,
Right.
a mountain of school district debt, and a lot reviews,
Mm-hmm.
all while developers are just putting up new houses left and right.
Yep.
It's starting to feel like residents are getting squeezed from all sides here.
That's the narrative this letter is trying to create.
Yeah.
But they don't stop at impact fees. They also tackle this issue of teacher salaries.
Right, because that's a big selling point for the property tax.
Huge selling point.
Yeah.
And here's where things get even more interesting. They really challenge the messaging coming from the pro-tax campaign.
Because they're saying that St. Johns County teachers are paid less than teachers in surrounding counties, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
But this letter uses data from the Florida Department of Education to show that that's not actually true.
Oh, really?
Yeah, according to the state, St. Johns County teachers are making slightly more than the average teacher in nearby counties.
How much more are we talking about?
The letter mentions a difference of $146.56 per year.
Huh. So not a huge difference, but still.
Right. It's not a ton of money, but it completely contradicts the claim that they're lagging behind.
Right, so they're saying, hold on, teachers are actually doing okay here.
Exactly.
Let's not rush into this new property tax just yet.
Right.
Makes sense.
And they also point out that Florida has seen some pretty significant state-level increases in teacher pay recently.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, including this $200 million boost that was just approved for next school year.
For 2024, 2025.
And that's on top of $1 billion increase from the previous year.
Wow.
So between the state increases and the fact that they're already making a bit more than teachers in surrounding counties, it sounds like St. Johns County teachers have gotten a pretty good deal lately.
They have.
And the letter even highlights the fact that Governor DeSantis has bragged about Florida's starting teacher salary being the highest in the Southeast.
Oh, wow.
So they're questioning the need for this specific property tax for teacher salaries when it seems like they're already competitive.
Maybe even a little ahead of the curve.
Yeah, maybe so.
That's a good
It
point.
makes you wonder if there's more to this story.
There's definitely more to unpack here.
There is.
So the letter doesn't just stop at teacher salaries.
It doesn't.
They also address per-student spending.
Yeah, another key metric for evaluating educational funding.
So are they spending less per student in St. Johns County than in those neighboring counties?
Actually, no, they're not.
Okay.
The letter points to data showing that they actually spend 2% more. Yeah, 2% more per student than the 5 surrounding counties.
So they're paying teachers more. They're spending more per student than their neighbors.
Right.
But they still need these tax increases. Something's not adding up here.
You're catching on. And the letter has a theory about why that might be the case.
Okay, lay it on me. What's their theory?
They allege a link between developers and the pro-tax campaign. They cite campaign finance data that shows these developers contributing to political action committees,
PECs,
yeah, that are supporting these tax proposals.
Ah, the classic follow the money strategy.
Right. Always a good place to start when things don't seem quite right.
Exactly. And the letter actually gives some pretty specific examples.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like one where 3 large developers all contributed a total of $150,000 to a pro-tax PAC, all in the same day.
Wow. That's putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, you have to admit that raises some questions about their motivations behind these tax proposals.
It definitely does. And the letter argues that if voters approve these taxes, they're essentially funding this infrastructure that primarily benefits developers,
Wow.
not themselves.
This is starting to feel like a real David and Goliath situation,
Kinda, yeah.
with residents facing off against these powerful developers and their big money.
It does have that feel.
But it sounds like this letter isn't just about pointing fingers.
You're right.
They're actually offering a solution, right?
They are.
Okay, I'm all ears.
What they propose is a significant increase in those school impact fees and concurrency fees.
Can you remind me what those are? I think we talked about them earlier.
Yeah.
But it would be helpful to go over it again.
Concurrency fees are designed to make sure new development doesn't overwhelm existing infrastructure.
Okay.
They're paid by developers to help fund improvements to roads, water systems, parks, all those public amenities that are needed to support a growing population.
So the letter is saying, make developers pay more upfront to cover the impact of their projects.
Exactly.
Oh.
And they specifically mention Clay and Volusia counties as examples of places where these fees are already much higher than in St. Johns County.
Interesting.
And Clay County actually just recently increased their impact fees.
Oh, wow.
So it can be done.
If other counties are doing it, why not St. John's?
That's a great question.
But does the school district have any say in this?
Well, that's another interesting point the letter brings up.
Okay.
They claim that, according to county officials, the school district hasn't opposed any proposed developments.
Really? That's surprising.
It is. You'd think they'd be more vocal if they're struggling to keep up with the demands of all this growth.
Totally.
It does make you wonder.
It really does. Okay, so this is getting pretty complex.
It is.
We've got taxes, development, school funding, impact fees, concurrency fees, and now this potential political influence.
It's a lot.
It is. That's a lot to digest.
And it certainly is.
But it just highlights how interconnected all of these issues are.
Yeah, it really does.
Decisions about development and taxes have this ripple effect across the whole community, impacting everything from the quality of schools to public services to the overall cost of living.
Totally.
We've only just scratched the surface of this letter.
Yeah, we have.
There's still so much more to explore. What else you got?
Let's talk about this $68 million school.
Okay.
And how it illustrates the problems with all of this. So speaking of financial strain, the letter uses a really interesting example to illustrate their point.
Right.
The recent construction of that new Silverleaf K-8 school.
Oh, yeah, that was a huge project, wasn't it?
It was a $68 million price tag.
Wow.
And the letter uses it to show this huge gap between what developers are actually contributing through those impact fees and the actual cost of building schools to handle all the students coming in.
Right.
With all these new housing developments.
So they're saying that Silverleaf is like the poster child for how this system.
Yeah. Benefits developers while the taxpayers are stuck footing the bill.
Exactly.
Yeah, they point out that this brand new school, which is set to hold about 1,500 students, costs a whopping $45,333 per student to build.
Can you imagine?
It's a lot.
$45,000 per student.
Per student.
That's more than some entire school districts spend in a year.
It's a big number.
It is a big number.
And to make their point even stronger, they compare that per student cost to the impact fee for a typical new home, which as of September 17th, 2024, is only $5,940.
Wait, so it costs over $45,000 per student to build a new school, but developers are only kicking in around $6,000 per house.
Per house.
That's a huge difference.
It is. And the letter argues that this cost disparity is just not sustainable in the long run.
Yeah.
Taxpayers are essentially subsidizing this development by covering the majority of these school construction costs.
And this isn't a one-time thing either.
Right.
Didn't the letter say something about the school district's plans to build even more new schools?
They did. The school district's 5-year plan shows that they intend to build 1 to 2 new schools every single year.
Wow, that's a lot of schools.
It is. And at a cost of, roughly $68 million per school.
Wow.
That adds up to somewhere between $68 and $136 million.
Every year.
Every year, just on new school construction.
So if impact fees aren't covering these costs.
Right.
And they don't want to raise taxes. How on earth are they going to pay for all this?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And the letter implies that this will likely lead to even more requests for tax increases in the future.
Oh, great.
Yeah, they're suggesting that this cycle, this development, not enough impact fees, rising taxes, is just unsustainable.
Something's got to give.
Something's got to give. And their solution, as we discussed earlier, is to significantly increase both impact and concurrency fees.
Okay, but wouldn't that make housing even more expensive?
That's a valid concern, for sure.
Yeah.
But the letter argues that by making developers pay more upfront, We can not only help fund the infrastructure that these new developments require, but also potentially slow down the rate of development, which would give the county some breathing room to catch up and plan more strategically.
That's a good point. So concurrency fees, on the other hand, are all about making sure new development doesn't just overwhelm the existing infrastructure.
Exactly.
You want your commute to double.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the roads weren't designed to handle all the new houses.
Yeah, you need to make sure that the roads and the water and sewer systems, parks, all that stuff can handle it.
Exactly. So it's about planning for the future, not just reacting to what's happening right now.
Exactly. But let's circle back to this idea of developer influence for a minute.
Okay.
Because the letter mentions those campaign contributions and this alleged connection between developers and the pro-tax campaign.
Yeah, those are some pretty serious accusations.
They are, and it's something that voters will want to think about carefully as they weigh the pros and cons of these tax proposals.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the letter doesn't provide, like, absolute proof of any wrongdoing.
Right.
But it does raise some valid concerns about transparency and accountability
for sure.
in local government.
Transparency and accountability are always important.
Always.
Especially when we're talking about our tax dollars.
Exactly. And this letter is encouraging voters to ask tough questions.
Like what?
Like, who actually benefits from these tax proposals?
Right.
Are there other ways to do this, like increasing impact and concurrency fees?
Right.
That might be more fair.
So what does all this mean for voters in St. Johns County?
Well, it sounds like they're facing a really complex decision with long-term consequences.
No doubt.
You're absolutely right. It's not just a simple yes or no vote.
Yeah.
There are good arguments to be made on both sides.
Okay.
People who support these tax increases might argue that they're absolutely necessary.
To keep the schools good.
To keep the quality of schools high and make sure teachers are paid what they deserve.
And they might also point to the fact that St. Johns County has a reputation for great schools.
It does, yeah.
Which is a big draw for new residents.
Huge draw.
And new businesses.
Exactly. But on the other hand, the people who are against the taxes might argue that they're unfairly benefiting developers.
Right.
And that the county needs to find more sustainable ways to pay for growth.
Like increasing those impact and concurrency fees that we talked about.
Yeah.
They might also be worried about the long-term consequences of relying on sales and property taxes to fund schools in a county that's growing so fast.
That's a tough question.
It is a tough question. At some point, something's got to give.
Right. And they might also question whether the school district is doing enough to manage all this growth responsibly.
Yeah.
And really fight for its own financial well-being.
This is a tough call.
It is. There's a lot at stake here.
There is. And ultimately, it's up to the voters of St. Johns County to decide which path they want to take.
Exactly.
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening.
It has.
We've gone from looking at these very specific tax proposals on the ballot to talking about these broader issues of development, school funding, and even this potential political influence.
And they're all connected.
They are.
Which just shows that even these issues that seem very local can often tie into these bigger national trends and debates.
Well said.
Thanks.
But we're not quite done with this deep dive yet.
We're not.
There's one more piece of this puzzle we need to look at.
Okay.
The letter's call to action.
Oh, right.
They're not just telling voters to vote no on these taxes. They want them to demand a whole new approach.
This is going to be good.
Okay. So we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the St. Johns County tax battle.
All right.
And it looks like this letter isn't just about saying no to those proposed taxes. Right.
It's about
pushing for a whole different way of thinking about all this growth and how we pay for it.
Exactly. So the letter ends with a really clear call to action.
Okay.
They want voters to contact their elected officials and demand a major increase in
those impact and concurrency fees.
Right, those impact and concurrency fees that we've been talking about.
Or
saying, hey, if we want these good schools and we don't want to be, just drowning in taxes, we need to make sure developers are pulling their weight.
Absolutely.
Right, paying their fair share.
Yeah, and remember they pointed out that those fees are way lower in St. Johns County than in places like Clay and Volusia counties.
Exactly. So they're not just making this up.
Right.
They're using other counties as examples of what's possible.
Right.
But is this realistic?
Right.
When they really convince these county officials to make such a big change?
Well, the letter highlights the fact that Clay County actually just did exactly that. Oh, wow.
Yeah, they recently put a significant increase in impact fees into effect.
So it can be done.
It can be done.
Yep.
And they're suggesting that St. Johns County could follow suit.
Okay.
Especially if voters, make their voices heard.
Yeah, get out there.
Yeah.
And really push for this.
Make some noise.
So it's a call for grassroots action.
It is.
Get the residents to band together and demand more responsible policies.
Absolutely. The letter actually frames this as a choice.
A choice between.
Do we keep going down this path of,
unsustainable development?
Sustainable development.
Where the taxpayers are always stuck holding the bag.
Right.
Or do we push for a system where growth actually pays for itself?
That's the question.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
This isn't just about taxes in schools.
Right.
It's about the kind of community we want to live in.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to see their neighborhood overrun with development.
Yeah.
Their schools bursting at the seams.
Right.
Their commutes getting longer and longer.
Uh-huh.
Their property taxes going through the roof.
Nobody wants that.
And this letter is saying, hold on.
There's a better way.
Right. There's a better way. We can have growth.
Yeah.
But it needs to be managed responsibly.
Responsibly, right?
And developers need to pay their fair share.
Absolutely.
So it's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
The benefits of growth should be shared fairly.
Right.
And the costs shouldn't fall just on the people who already live here.
Exactly.
And this whole debate about who pays for growth, it's happening all over the country.
It is.
So even if you don't live in St. Johns County,
right,
this deep dive can hopefully give you some insights into how development is impacting your own community.
That's a great point.
This has been so eye-opening.
It has.
We uncovered this whole web of interconnected issues.
I know.
Taxes, development, school funding, even this political influence.
Right.
And ultimately, the future of St. Johns County. So what's the main takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with?
I think the most important thing is this. We all have a role to play in shaping the future of our communities.
We do.
We need to stay informed, stay engaged, and just be willing to ask tough questions about how growth is being managed, how our tax dollars are being spent, and who's really benefiting
from these decisions,
from the decisions that are being made.
So it's about being an active participant. In this process, not just a passive bystander.
Exactly. And it's about understanding that the choices that we make today have a real impact on the places where we live.
And work and play.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, this letter has definitely given us all a lot to think about.
It has.
And I have a feeling it's going to spark a lot of debate in St. Johns County.
Oh, I think so.
And probably beyond.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
This letter, it was just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
It raised a lot of questions. But it also pointed us in the right direction.
To find more information.
Those footnotes?
Yeah.
Packed with all those links.
To reports.
To reports and all this data.
So much data.
If you're curious to learn more about any of this, whether it's the specifics of the tax proposals, the whole impact fee debate,
right,
or this issue of developer influence, I really encourage you to check out those footnotes.
Yeah, they're full of great resources.
They are.
For learning more.
For digging even deeper.
Exactly.
So until next time.
Yeah.
Keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
And keep the conversation going.
Absolutely.